Good morning. I'm Marcus from snapADDY. I'm delighted to be joined by Robert Hawke, Business Process Manager at OMICRON Energy. Thank you for coming and welcome to the snapADDY launch event.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So OMICRON Energy is a huge company with worldwide more than 20 locations. You are based in Houston, Texas, and it is a company in the energy sector, so everything from circuit breakers, switchgear, test equipment is made or is done by OMICRON. And you are working with Microsoft Dynamics. So when you started the project with snapADDY, what exactly were the processes that you wanted to improve in Microsoft Dynamics?
Yeah, so we've had Dynamics for pretty much 10 to 12 years now. And one of the main things that we were facing already in the beginning was that we had an issue with external data coming in. And I've actually prepared a few slides since you gave me your questions up front. I've prepared a few slides since it's a little bit difficult to illustrate everything. So if you don't mind, I'll share my screen. Yeah, so the main issue we had already when we started looking in 2011 when we started looking at it is that we have, as you see on the left side here, we have quite a lot of different sources of data from external sources. So we have address lists, we go to trade shows and events a lot, we have our website, we have training registrations, we have a customer portal. All those areas are where people enter data and they don't always enter it perfectly, unfortunately. And so how do we currently get that data into our system? Well, right now we have to do a manual Excel upload to get things into the leads. Or in these cases, we even have to do a completely manual data entry. And of course, this is extremely time consuming. But that's not where the time consuming part ends, because the next thing that also has to be done later on is somebody has to look at those leads and then qualify them. And that qualification can take a lot of time too, because it requires to manually do a search and see, okay, do we have this lead already as an account in our system? If we have the account already in the system, has anything changed? Is it a different address? Is there a new phone number? And the same also for the contact. We have to look, does that person already exist? Are they with the correct account? Did the address change? Did the phone number change? Is their job title still accurate? So all these things take up just an incredible amount of time. And we've been looking for many, many years to kind of speed up this process by automating as much as possible of it. And so far, we hadn't really been lucky in finding anything. Of course, the last part that also comes is here, this opportunity qualification. That's, of course, the part that can't be as automated, because that's where the real business is, where we have to decide, okay, do we have a chance to sell something in there? So the main focus is really improving these red things that we have listed here.
So probably the first question that comes into mind for many viewers is, isn't there an out-of-the-box solution from Microsoft Dynamics itself?
So yes and no, right? Microsoft offers a few things that could help this. So for instance, they do have a duplicate detection system in there, but it's very basic. And so the out-of-the-box solution is not really meeting our needs at all. The one thing is that the fields had to match 100%, right? So one small typo and it didn't recognize it as a duplicate anymore. And it was also based on exactly one field. So it was first name, last name. If that matches, then it's a duplicate. If not, then it's not a duplicate. There's no smart logic to really combine different fields, define thresholds and complex rules or anything like that. The other thing is the user still has to review each entry manually, so there was no automation in the background to kind of completely automatically handle everything. But even like very simple things already made a challenge in the default thing. For instance, when you get data from various sources, the country may be spelled differently in every different source. And so you need somehow a country and state detection, and all those things were not a part of the Microsoft solution. Phone numbers are sometimes formatted differently, and they need to be normalized. So there's a lot of standardization and normalization in the data that is required before you can even do a smart duplicate detection. And so that's where I think snapADDY has helped us significantly.
And as you told me before the interview, you had checked with a lot of different options and a lot of different other companies. So what was the decisive point to decide to do it with snapADDY?
Well, I think two things. One, nobody else really offers anything comparable. We've been searching for many, many years and never found anything. We're very happy that we found snapADDY. And of course, it's been a great collaboration, and we could already see that in the first meetings before we, came to a contract and agreement. We saw a very dynamic team, a very customer-oriented team, and a team that was really interested in getting absolutely the best results for us, and very uncomplicated. Dealing with some of the larger vendors, we've had some discussions with them, but they weren't as flexible, and I think that's where snapADDY is still, medium size and very young, dynamic team in the sense of, only a few years established in the market really helps to get a great, innovative team together that helps with these things.
Right. So now I think you're going to show us how snapADDY is integrated after the project into Dynamics, and I think this is probably what many viewers want to see now.
Yeah. So I'll come back to the slide we had before, right? And I'll show what has changed as part of the big project, because we're not only implementing snapADDY, we also are upgrading our entire CRM system. So we made changes throughout the whole system and how we process things. And a good majority of the improvements here are driven by snapADDY. So if we look at the first part, the manual Excel upload, we've replaced this with two things. Well, if we get address lists, we still do just upload the Excel file. That's the easiest thing. But for the trade shows and events, we're now using the snapADDY visit report, and I'll be showing that later how that process works in a live kind of simulation. All the manual data entry down here, we pretty much replaced all of that with two things, a good chunk with a website API interface. So we don't have any manual transfer anymore. The data comes in directly as a lead. And at the bottom, you see the snapADDY data quality tool, which we use for emails and business cards kind of on a day-to-day basis, not in a batch form or anything. And that's a very useful tool for us as well. And then where really the biggest improvements lie, because I think the column on the left, that's kind of the snapADDY standard offering, right? That's what you had already before. And what this special partnership project now developed was what we're seeing here on the right, which was basically an automated duplicate check and automated merge attempt. So basically trying to identify the account and contact, and even trying to automatically update certain information on the account. So there's three results that could happen at the end of this. There's either nothing to do because everything was done automatically, or it could be that a manual review update is still needed because maybe the system wasn't 100% sure if it should make the change, or we configured it that way and said, hey, don't update an address. We always want to manually update the address, for instance. So the same, of course, for the contact. An automated duplicate check, and then an automated merge if something is identified already. And same here, you could have either nothing to do. We then added in our own programming also an option to automatically create contacts to even save more time. If snapADDY determines that the person does not exist, we just automatically create the contact without any need to for anybody manually to do anything. Or we also here have a manual update if it's some fields where we weren't comfortable with automatic updates, and we have a full capability to configure that. And of course, at the bottom on the manual search for duplicates, that's all still the same. We still like to do that process manually.
Thank you. So this sure looks good on paper, but the app is or has been running for a while now. So can you tell us from your experience what are the benefits up to this point?
Yeah, so like I said from the beginning, the main focus is time saving. So in this case here, time saving is the biggest benefit, and improved data quality, because it's either two things. Either you spend the time before, right? We could either spend the time and get good data quality, or we could not do it at all and not spend the time, but then we had bad data quality and the updates didn't make it into the system. Now we have high data quality with low time spent. And one example, for instance, here, for instance, a marketing webinar with 200 participants, we kind of collect name, address, phone, job title, these type of things from every participant. We may have a mailing opt-in, GDPR compliant for maybe 100 people. And then 30 people have kind of a follow-up question after the webinar in a survey. We usually do a survey at the end of our webinars. And so in the past, in the old system, we had quite a lot of things to do. So the first thing was all these 200 people had to be imported. We did that previously with the Excel import. Then we had to assign them to the correct inside salesperson. So that took maybe 40 minutes. We then had to, that inside sales team had to diligently search for duplicates. So that's maybe another 300 minutes, kind of one and a half minute, right, per record. And then after that duplicate search, the next thing was to either create a new contact or update an existing account or contact. And so that could also take potentially up to 2 minutes per record. Comparing manually, is the job title the same? Look left, look right, look at the phone number, look left, look right on 2 different screens, right? A lot of this going on. So quite time consuming. And if we look at this, that means we spend probably 11.5 hours just on data maintenance. And then, of course, there's still the 30 participants that required a real follow-up. So maybe on that, we spend 10 minutes on phone calls or emails, trying to follow up, answering the questions, whatever was needed. And as you can see, right, we're spending 65% of our time on data maintenance and only 35% of our time really on dealing with the customer, taking care of the business. And in the new system, that's been improved significantly because a lot of these things, as you can see, are 100% automated. So the first part is gone. That's thanks to snapADDY's country detection. It automatically recognizes the country, and we have built-in logic to automatically assign it to the right people based on country and state. Then the big change also is that the update of accounts and contacts, you see it's only 30 instead of 150, because out of the 150, maybe the majority has already been updated because there were only small changes or no changes at all, and we don't even have to compare anything because the comparison is already done. So significantly less records looked at manually, and also less time spent, because the tool is so much faster that we don't have to do the open both records and look left and right all the time. We'll see that in a couple of minutes later. And so as a result, as you can see at the bottom, we barely spend any time on data maintenance now, and we can focus the majority of our time really on dealing with customers and dealing with the business. And it's definitely led to us having a higher quality and a faster follow-up also with our customers, because it's just so much faster now to get the data into the system. Previously, it could take up to 2 or 3 days after something was completed until the actual salesperson saw that lead. Now they see it sometimes within seconds. If somebody's at the event, they enter the information on the snapADDY visit report. Within 5 minutes, it's at the salesperson's inbox on their lead view.
And it's actually the more time you spend on the customer, the better is the sale you're going to make, the more sales you can make. So it's a huge benefit, as I can see. One question, the slide before you mentioned that the centerpiece is the duplicate check. So how is it different to the Microsoft duplicate check? And could you solve everything with snapADDY, or what in detail could you solve with snapADDY?
Yeah, so I think we really managed to get most of the things figured out and most of the things resolved that I mentioned earlier that Microsoft wasn't able to do. So we have, like I said, this country and state standardized recognition into lookup fields, which allows us to automatically assign and automatically compare the values properly. We do have the phone number format issue solved. With getting standardized formats for searching as well as for displaying. We have also addressed something that's pretty common in North America, maybe not so common in the rest of the world, but there's some strange nicknames here that are very far from the real name, as you can see here with Bill and William, for instance. So snapADDY's worked on a way to automatically recognize that as well. And so if I have a new contact and it says William on their business card, it'll still recognize, hey, this is probably the same person as this Bill guy that we have in our system. It also added a phonetic sound check, as you can see here, Alex versus Alex, right? Kind of the same. Through that, we're also catching typos. If there's a typo in one thing, it's still all recognized as, hey, this could be a potential duplicate. So we can really rely on the duplicate check to be accurate. Also here, right, we have a score that matches the percentage of the field. So it doesn't just say, yes, this is the same or it's not the same. It gives a threshold and says, hey, this is a 93% match. And based on that, we can really configure our own scoring and update logics accordingly. And that's helping us a lot in the configuration of things.
So and then you have a duplicate, and if it's very clear that it's only one duplicate and that this is the woman or man that is probably also already existent in the CRM system, you're doing this auto merge that you mentioned before, and how does that work?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I forgot the last part of the slide. Yeah, so just like you mentioned, right, there's usually an identified or an unclear or it does not exist, and only in the case of identified, it then usually moves on to the auto merge phase, because if it's unclear or does not exist, there's nothing to merge. And so that auto merge basically it allows merge rules that we can configure ourselves for each field. And so we've already defined separate strategies for separate sources. This is just a snapshot of our fields. This doesn't include everything. So here we have 3 different categories of leads. We could put some in the low quality source, high quality source, or even customer portal. And so we can change these configurations. We could say, okay, for the customer portal, I want to always overwrite the position, as you see. So that means if a different value comes in, it will just overwrite it. But we also have this complement option, and the complement basically only adds it if there was nothing in the field before, if it was empty before. And that's very helpful because it really allows to easily add information, to easily override information, and we are in full control of determining that, and we can change it at any moment if we feel like we made a wrong choice in defining the merge strategy for a certain field.
Okay, but that's interesting. How do you decide which strategy to pick?
So it's not that easy. Obviously, we have to balance the time saving of automating as much as possible with the risk of maybe not doing smart things, because not every lead has great quality, right? Not every lead is always perfect. But we've actually developed a small dashboard where we're analyzing which fields are kind of stopping us from an automated processing. So this is where this Power BI dashboard comes in. We see here, let me actually make this bigger. If I close these, it'll grow a little bit. We see here the duplicate check results. So for instance, if this is one event, the name's a little bit shorter, but if I just pick this one event and filter it down, I can see how many accounts were considered. So this is the part of the duplicate check, how many contacts were considered. I can see the results of the duplicate check. So in the account search, for instance, you can see the majority ended up being identified via the contact, because we usually have an account linked to each contact. You see 36 were unclear and some did not exist. And then on the contact side, we can also see here that we had, for instance, the majority identified. The majority of contacts were identified. And for those that were identified, we can then see, okay, 16 received the full auto update, 11 needed the review, 45 had no changes at all, and 39 had a partial auto update, which means the auto merge updated something, but maybe another field it was not allowed to update, and so it still needs to be looked at. So basically the ones that we're manually looking at from this batch here is the 39 here and the 11. The other 16 and 45 we don't even have to look at anymore. They're completely taken care of. And if we want to look at, well, let's look in more detail which fields were triggering kind of an update for those 11 and 39. So that's where I can do the drill through here to our merge details. So here I have the same thing. You see here I have my 39 and my 16. And so if I want to see, hey, which fields led to a partial auto update but still needed a review, I can click this here, and now I can see, okay, the telephone one was the field that in most cases caused it to not automatically update. So now I could decide and say, hey, is it worth it to change the telephone one to overwrite instead of complement, meaning we just make the change without anybody looking at it. And those are now the decisions we can take based on figuring out, does it hurt the data quality? If yes, by how much? Is it worth the time saving? And we have to just strike that balance.
That's actually impressive. So right now, the automatic merge with the duplicate check is already pretty okay, but you can improve over time and get to a level of optimum that at some point can be reached, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the same, this is on the merge details. We can do the same also on the duplicate check, right? If we for instance discover that oh look, they are actually, it said unclear, but this really should not have been unclear. This really should have been identified. We can look at which fields were scored how, and then determine, okay, maybe I give this field a little bit a higher weight, and then this one would have been already identified the next time. So we really have full flexibility in adjusting these settings to make it even more accurate and even more time saving without losing data quality. So
now it would be pretty impressive to see the process in action. Do you think we can take a short glimpse at your system, how everything works together?
Absolutely. So let me close this, and we can look right here. So this is what you see here. This is our this is the snapADDY visit report. So what I prepared is to simulate the an event. So this is basically a phone app that the employees could have on their phone. Obviously here on the PC it's a little bit bigger. And so I would start a new report. The first thing they'll do is they'll scan the business card. I don't have my camera on this thing, but I can load an image that I uploaded before. So here I have a copy of the business card. We can already see not perfect quality, right? A little bit pixelated. Doesn't matter too much. So the first step is to load that card. We can see it automatically recognized quite a lot of the fields that we have in here. I could review them, make sure they're all recognized correctly. All looks good. Country, state automatically detected as well in this case.
And this is already an out-of-the-box solution by snapADDY, so this is, you don't need to configure anything for that.
Correct. It's been really great to have this. So business card is recognized. Next step then is to answer a few questions. So for instance, here we can get the consent for our marketing mailings. I can add a function. So this person was the CEO, so I would select business management. We have a management level, so I'll say here, this person is upper management. Maybe he's not an equipment user, but he's a key person. I'll keep them as open-minded. So these fields we could easily configure within a few minutes on the snapADDY visit report configuration page. We can select a segment. I'll just put infrastructure here. Maybe they're in airport business. We have certain applications we can select. And I'll move along. Then we can select the product. I'll choose this one. And maybe the person wanted a quote and a sales call. Discussion details, the potential for sale. You might say, okay, it's high, and how urgent it is to follow up. Could add final notes. I could add more attachments, some drawings, whatever I want. And this is it. And now I'll export this into our CRM. Good. And now that I exported this, I can go into my CRM. And I have here a view called my leads open. So these are all the new ones that came in that need to be processed. And as you can see, the one we just exported is already showing up here. I can open it up. I can see all the information that was transferred correctly over, the sales call, the quote, the discussion and action details, phone number, name, address, everything was already moved properly over. And I can also see what already happened, what snapADDY already did automatically. So if I click on this here, I get the results of everything that happened automatically. I can see the contact was identified. The account was identified via the contact because that contact already had the account linked to it. The lead was already linked with that same contact and account. And because they were identified, the auto merge was triggered. And here I see the results from the auto merge. And it says I still need to review something. That means the auto merge was not able to take care of everything automatically. There are still some fields that I need to review manually. And that's because we at OMICRON decided in our configuration that those need to be reviewed manually. If I want to see what they are, I can click here. And it will load this. Lead in here, and it does the comparison one more time. It found again the same contact. It found the account. We see also there's some scoring here. So if I click on here, if there were multiple, I would see multiple potentials, and the one with the highest score is usually selected. So here, for instance, I see there are some other ones with significantly lower scores. So that's the duplicate check. And we see as far as fields to be updated, the address and the company name as well on the contact as also on the account are the fields that require a review. And that is because we configured it that way. We configured it in a way to say, hey, we require a manual review, no automatic updating of addresses or account names, because those are too crucial. But there were other fields that changed already automatically before. So if I look at this, I can see at the bottom here, there's, for instance, this upper management level or this function. These were not entered before. They were missing on the contact, but I added them on the visit report. And because these fields are configured to automatically update, they were filled in without me having to click anything. And the same over here, we have the segmentation that is selected on the visit report that wasn't available on the account before. So it saves a lot of time not having to look at these fields, of course.
So these fields are normally what a human would have to check if there was no auto merge.
Yes, if there was no auto merge, I would have to look at every change as symbolized here, right, by the two options from the snapADDY tool. And so that's saves me time not having to look at everything. It looked much cleaner as well before I expanded it. But the even bigger advantage is that there really is no need to sometimes look at a contact at all, because let's assume the address had matched and the company name had matched, and the only new information would have been the function and the management level and the segmentation. Then I wouldn't have had to even open this at all. And so this really helps. So if I want to continue the process, I can click here. For instance, I decide, yes, this is the right thing here. I can click here, choose the fields that I want to update. And then at the end, I can save the record back to Dynamics. And now the final changes are also moving through and are updating. I'm gonna minimize this while it saves. And so now, after I've done this, the only thing I have left to do now is to do the actual follow-up with the customer, the actual business discussion, like I shared earlier, right? That's where the majority of the time should be used. It was really fast. I barely spent any time reviewing the data. And like I said, in some cases, this wouldn't even occur here. So I can simulate this a little bit by cheating. Let's say, for instance, that the account data match had said full auto update, nothing needed to be reviewed. You can see this whole step in between just disappeared. And basically then when I open a lead and I find these results, I know I don't even have to open snapADDY anymore. I can move directly to taking care of the business, going straight to the follow-ups and not dealing at all with any additional data quality or data maintenance tasks. So overall, that's a huge time saver compared to how things were done before.
It's not only a time saver, so it's less prone to errors, and you're quicker in the sales call or talking to the customer. So I think that's a huge benefit as well. Absolutely.
And it's the combination of both. It's the combination of getting the information faster in, because in the old days, we even used paper before at the event, before we start using the snapADDY visit report. So somebody would write all these notes on a piece of paper, and then after having everything on the piece of paper, they would maybe hand it off to somebody that person would then have to transcribe it and enter it into our CRM later. So it could be even 3 to 4 days pass even until the data even makes it into the CRM, and then somebody has to do all this manual data maintenance, and if they don't have time, it gets delayed by another 2 days. So it could be potentially 5 to 6 days until somebody even really sees all this information and starts following up on it. And now with the Visit Report app, it comes almost instantly into the CRM. All the data maintenance is done almost instantly, and the user can get really quickly to a follow-up. So you could say, a reduction from potentially 5 days in a probably worst case scenario to now almost a guaranteed, 10, 15 minutes if the person is available to look at it this fast. So yeah, I think the process has definitely improved a lot because of this.
Yeah, very impressive. Speaking about time, we're actually at the end of our interview time, but I think we got a great overview of the whole process, but also on a detailed view about the important steps. So thank you very much for sharing this, and thank you very much for the interview.
Yeah, of course, no problem. It was fun to share how we've improved our things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.